Hey guys, so middle grade March is coming up here really quickly, and one of my goals for this year in general was to share more of my favorites on this channel, like specifically either genre specific favorites or like today I'm going to be sharing a bunch of middle grade favorites. I actually did a middle grade favorites video 2-ish years ago before I was actually even technically on BookTube. I didn't go back and watch it, so I don't know what's on there. I would recommend not searching for it because I feel like it would probably just be painful. But anyway, I have a bunch of really good books here today that I'm excited to share. As of filming this, it is a couple days before the middle grade March announcement videos go out. So this is hosted by Katie from Life Between Words, Krista from Books and Jams, and Amanda from The Curly Reader. So I right now don't know the prompts. I don't know if these books are going to fit the prompts, but these are just some of my favorite middle grade books. I think all of them on here I've read in the last year. So I do have other like middle grade favorites, but I thought I would kind of like keep it to the ones I've read recently. Also, side note, the weather here today is cold. It's February finally, and we're getting our January weather now. It's minus 50 degrees Celsius with the wind the last time I checked. So yeah, lots of time for reading. So this is a good time to, you know, think about all the books. These books are in no particular order. So the first one here I have is Wish. This is a story about a girl whose name is Charlie, and she has to go live with her aunt and uncle because her dad goes to jail and her mom's not doing well. And if you've been here for any amount of time, you know any kind of books that have kind of to do with foster care really get to me. So this one is kind of the heart of it is that she's struggling in this home, even though it's lovely. She, you know, still has trauma and baggage, and we listened to this as an audiobook as a family, and it was so sweet. I would highly recommend this one. I mean, I'm going to say that for all of these, but this one was so good. Okay, and then like some of these maybe, I don't know, are they middle grade? I'm not 100% sure, but the next one I'm going to recommend is Anne of Green Gables. And actually, I haven't read this one in the last year, but a few months ago I read Anne of Avonlea, and I honestly love that one more than Anne of Green Gables. So I'm kind of just recommending the entire series. My daughter has read the first book, possibly the first few. She's in grade 5, so I think pretty much all of these she's read, and if not, I would recommend to her. So that was kind of my like thought process when picking like, are these middle grade or are they not? So I mean, this one is about Anne who lives in Prince Edward Island and goes to once again, what's with the theme here? She goes and lives with a couple because she's an orphan, and they were asked for a boy. They got Anne, and she's an interesting character. I feel like I like how her character develops more in book 2 than book 1. Book 1 she's maybe a little annoying, but it's still a really good series. I've only read the first 2 books. I don't know if I can say that yet. Yeah, love Anne. Then another one that we listened to on audio together as a family is Book Scavenger. This is actually book 2. This one's The Unbreakable Code. I think book 1 is, yeah, it's just called Book Scavenger. For whatever reason, I haven't been able to find book 1, but I own book 2 and 3. But book 1 is the only one I've read. So in this, there is a girl whose name is, what is her name? Emily. She moves to San Francisco, and this is the home of her like hero, this guy that created this game called Book Scavenger, where there's a website and you hide books and then you leave clues on the website, and people have to figure out the clue to figure out where the book is hidden. And there is actually a real Book Scavenger website. It's not really used in the area that I live, but my kids have been talking about doing this since last year, since we read the book. So I think in the spring, once it's not minus 50 here, we are going to hide some books for some of our like fellow homeschool friends to find. Okay, and then a series I started last year and then only got to book 3 finally this year is Keeper of the Lost Cities. This is a fantasy series. Currently there are 8.5 books out. They went up to 8 and then 8.5 came out. I'm not sure on that, but it's about, our main character is Sophie, who finds out right at the beginning of the book that she had been able to hear people's thoughts since she was 5. And she knew this, but she thought she was kind of crazy. But it turns out she's actually an elf living in a human world, and this other elf goes and gets her. And it's a very Harry Potter-esque, as in like there's things that they're doing, and Sophie has more abilities for some reason than other elves. But it's a really good adventure, and I'm on book 3, like I said, and I'm really enjoying it. And personally, I think it's better than Harry Potter, but I know that would be possibly an unpopular opinion, but I read both of them as adults, and so far I'm liking this series more. Okay, and then in a very different vein is the story of Bob. I read this, I think maybe in the summer, and I just have to read it from the back because, or maybe the inside flap, because this is great. So, it's been 5 years since Livy and her family have visited Livy's grandmother in Australia. Now that Livy's back, she has the feeling she's forgotten something really, really important about Grant's house. It turns out she's right. Bob, a short greenish creature dressed in a chicken suit, didn't forget Livy or her promise. He's been waiting 5 years for her to come back, hiding in a closet like she told him to. He can't remember who or what he is, where he came from, or if he even has a family. But 5 years ago, Livy promised she would help him find his way back home. Now it's time to keep that promise. And I love this book because there's like random lists throughout the book. And right on the back, it's got one of them. Here are some of the things this is Bob, did while I awaited Livy's return. Number 1, counted to 987,654,321 6 times. 2, built a Lego pirate ship 63 times, in the dark. 3, played chess against a Lego pirate monkey and still lost most of the time. 4, tried to do the hokey pokey like Livy had taught me, but there's not much room to turn oneself around in this narrow closet without hitting the walls. 5, cried, but only once. 6, okay twice, each day, but only for the first year. 7, thought of all the reasons that might explain why Livy didn't come back for me. So this book is just, I don't know, it's sweet and yet it's funny. It's a really quick read, and there's really cute illustrations throughout. Okay, this is one where I feel like it would be like upper, middle grade, maybe YA. I've seen it categorized as both. This is The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. This is one of his books that people don't talk about. So it's set in a school setting, very much like Harry Potter and quite a bit like For the Lost Cities. And there are people that kind of have powers and people that don't. So the people that do are called Arithmetists. They have the power to give life to two-dimensional chalk figures. And Joel is our main character, Joel, and he is the son of a chalk maker. And yeah, I don't know, it was a really interesting story. Things got like, as far as like the middle grade part goes, if you're recommending this to middle grade kids, things got a little bit more maybe scary or intense near like the end of the book. But I know my daughter, even though she's sensitive in so many areas, reading stuff doesn't scare her, so I think she would love this book. She hasn't read it yet though. Before I forget, I have a couple of recommendations that I don't have actual physical copies of. The first one is Sweep. So this is, the subtitle is The Story of a Girl and Her Monster. It's about a girl who's a chimney sweep, and she has a little piece of coal that ends up turning into this creature, and it's historical fiction. Like, I learned a lot about chimney sweeps, and yet it's very fantastical, and it made me tear up. I read it once by myself, and then we listened to it as an audiobook as a family, and both times I like totally teared up. I really loved the book. Another one I don't own is The False Prince. This is a series. I think there's currently 4 books out, but I'm not sure if there's going to be more. I've currently only listened to the first in the series, and I was debating whether or not I would continue, because I feel like book 1 was perfect. I didn't know if I wanted to read more of it, but I've heard such good things, and my daughter's been like pestering me to read the rest of the series that I've decided I will read it. I'm not 100% sure when. But anyway, The False Prince is pretty much this guy, he buys like 4 orphan boys, and his whole goal is to train them to pretend to be the prince. So he's training all 4 of them, and then he's going to pick whichever one is the best and then kill off the other ones. And our main character, Sage, he has a personality that's really fun to read about, but I think would be really annoying if he was like a real person. I don't think I could be friends with him, but I really enjoyed reading about him. And then another middle grade book that I really enjoyed just a couple months ago is Pictures of Hollis Woods. So it's about a girl in foster care. There's definitely a theme. I pick up a lot of books about kids in foster care. And she ends up getting this placement where she has to go live with this older lady. She finds out very soon into the placement that the older lady is I don't know, like getting dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that. And she's loving living with her, but she knows if social services finds out that this lady is kind of going downhill, then they're going to take her away. And so she does things to try to cover it up. And meanwhile, she's got like baggage from previous placements, and it's really well written. It broke my heart as a foster parent and just made me want to like take in all the kids and be really understanding when there's hard times because there's so much trauma. Yeah, I really love that one. On a lighter note, I've got Winter House. I've been reading this series. I've read book 1 and book 2 in December and January, and then I'm hoping to pick up book 3 in middle grade March, because apparently that one is set during Easter. The first 2 are each set during Christmas. One like 2 years apart. I mean, one year, one the next Christmas, and then Easter, I guess. This book takes place in a hotel called Winter House, and Elizabeth is our main character, and she, I don't know, gets kind of like wins a free trip to this hotel kind of thing. And there's some sketchy things going on. There's some weird characters. The cover is so great. Kind of gives you a look at all the characters. It's actually like a pop-out. Anyway, I've raved about this series because there are word puzzles throughout. Like, the characters are constantly talking about word puzzles, and the chapters, they all start with like different word puzzles. This was a fun read. Book 1 and book 2 were very similar, but I enjoyed it. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to book 3. Okay, one that I haven't talked about on my channel very much at all, possibly at all, because we read it together as a family shortly before I started my channel, is the Wingfeather Saga. So this, I find this one really hard to talk about because I feel like so much of what I want to say is spoilery. What can I say? So we follow 3 siblings, Janner, Tink, and Lily. They live in this town called, I don't even know what the town's called actually. They live in a little town, and it's kind of run by fangs, they're called. These creatures are kind of like crocodile-esque or something, and there's really cool illustrations throughout. I'll see if I can get a picture of a fang. The book starts out with just like such witty humor that we just loved as a family. Oh, here's it. And we listened to the audio, but there is also tons of footnotes. I'm trying to find some good footnotes here at the bottom, which are just like little sarcastic additions to each. I don't know, they just make the book so in-depth. You guys, I'm so bad at explaining this book. Things go down, the fangs are taking over, and Janner, Tink, and Lily kind of come into themselves in a way and try to take back their area from the fangs. Yes, very terrible, terrible description, but ignore my description and just pick this book up. The audio is great, but because of the footnotes, I say you have to read this one in physical form. Plus, there are some, like there are the illustrations throughout, but then there are things called toothy cows in this world, and there's a great picture of a toothy cow. They're very evil creatures. There's like maps, and there's all sorts of different things. So it's a 4-book series. I highly recommend checking it out, even though I did a terrible job explaining it. A series I just started, I've only read book 1 so far, is Aggie Morton Mystery Queen. So this is like a spin-off of Agatha Christie. It's supposed to be Agatha Christie when she's a kid, if she was solving mysteries. And I read book 1 in January, loved it. I have book 2 out from the library. If I don't read it in February, I'm going to read it in March for sure. It's very Agatha Christie-esque. You get your lineup of suspects, except that these ones have illustrations too. So you get all the characters on 2 pages. And one of the characters is the person that gets murdered, and one of them is the bad guy. And I just had such a fun time with this book. Actually, both of my kids have listened to it on audio since, and they enjoyed it. If you like mysteries and you like middle grade, I would recommend this. Plus, March is also March Mystery Madness, so this would be a good one that would probably work for both reading challenges. And then my last recommendation is one of the last middle grade books I read recently. This is Closer to Nowhere. This one is a middle grade book written in verse. And so it's about Hannah, whose cousin Cal comes and lives with her family, and they really just don't get along. It's a lot of misunderstandings and kind of like entitlement issues, but I don't know, I really love free verse novels when done well. And this one, all the chapters that are written by Cal, because they alternate, his always start out like fact or fiction. You can know where you are and still be lost. And then he answers it kind of in his chapter. And then all the chapters with Hannah are definitions. So this one is definition of Hannah Lincoln. And then we've got, so I guess they don't completely alternate, because this one is also Hannah's, and it says definition of status quo, the way things are or were. And then fact or fiction, my full name's Kelvin Lee Pace. So I don't know. I think it was just like an extra bit that really added to the book, and yeah, I enjoyed watching the character development. And my daughter listened to this on audio, and it's not her kind of book at all. She's really into fantasy, and she loved it, so it's not just me. Okay, so hopefully these books help you out for middle grade March a little bit. Hopefully these will fulfill some of the prompts. Probably in about a week or so I will be sharing my possibilities for middle grade March. My plan this month is, or for March, is to not make a huge TBR, but just, whoa, I almost knocked them all down. Just to show you all the books I got out from the library, all the middle grade books I haven't read on my shelf that I'm interested in reading, and then let myself mood read throughout the month of March. So that will be coming up soon. Let me know if you have any good middle grade March recommendations for me, and if you've enjoyed any of these books. Thanks for watching, guys.